Okay, so today we are going to focus on painting our fruit, our bowl, creating shadows and highlights on both of them, and then next week we'll add the finishing touches in the background, okay? So I have got a water cup, I've got brushes, I've got a paper towel, and then I've got my paint, okay? So they've been used by other classes, so there's like some dips of other colors in here, and it's actually going to be fine because Cezanne's work, you're not going to have like a pure flat color anyways, because that would not be very realistic for him. But the only thing I ask is that you're dipping your brush in there. You're not taking the brush and mixing it around because then you won't have any pure color in there. So we have a bunch of apples, and obviously most people think, okay, apples, red, which is true. There are red apples, and I will paint some of mine red, but you can have different colors with your apples as well. So I'm going to start with the most basic. Let's see, I've got a red apple here. So I'm going to paint my apple red, and I'm going to try to keep in my black lines as much as possible. But if it's not, that's fine. So I've got a red apple, pretty basic. I could say, okay, I'm going to use a little bit of yellow in that apple. And if you mix the color when the red's still wet, or you take the new color and add it in there, it's going to blend really nicely, okay? So I've got a nice red apple there. I can then take an apple here. Notice I didn't clean up my brush. And this is going to be kind of a red with the yellow on the apple, which you'll see too. So what I love about this is it's going to give it a natural like apple texture and color, even without even trying, okay? So I've got those apples. Maybe I go into another red right in here. See, I didn't clean out my brush, but since I went to a pure red, it's gonna paint nicely. I could take a little bit of yellow to that. Maybe just have some yellow here at the top. And if it's blending, like mine's blending a lot, maybe more than I want, I could wait for that red to dry a little bit and go over it again, okay? But then I'm going to clean out my brush. I'm going to do a green apple. So I'm going to go into the water, swirl it around, wipe it, maybe do that a couple times. Notice I'm not tapping, I'm not splashing, I'm just wiping it there. Then I can take my brush and kind of wipe off the extra. And then maybe this other one, I'm going to have a green apple. So the green's usually not this bright. So I'm going to go into yellow and then to the green. And I'm going to go back into the yellow because that's even more green than I want. Back into the yellow. And I'm going to paint this one to have like a green apple. So you can have all red apples if you want. You can have green apples. All I ask is that if you do all red apples or green apples, that they're not all the same shade of red or same shade of green, okay? I'm going to have another green apple right in here. Take some yellow on my brush. And I'm going over the stem a little bit. I'm using a bigger brush than I probably need. Probably should choose a more of a medium-sized brush or even small, depending on how big my area is going to be. So actually, you can still see that black mark in there. That's what I love about oil pastels. That's great. So maybe I'm gonna kind of exaggerate that little highlight right there. And I have my apples, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna create a little shadow. So my two favorite colors for shadows are red and green together because they're opposite on the color wheel, and they create just naturally a really nice shadow. So we're gonna have red and green mixed. And I probably should have chosen a smaller brush, but this is gonna be fine. Put some of that right around the edge where the bowl is. And I'm gonna kind of go up the side on the right side. So this is kind of getting messier for me. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my brush, and then now I'm gonna go over to this area here and kind of take my green and my yellow over that a little bit. Take my brush, I'm gonna go yellow and a little bit of red over this, more yellow. And this is just a way to kind of fix what I did not like, okay? And then I can go into this and a little more yellow. And it's also, you know, Cezanne would mix onto his paper, so this gives it a nice Cezanne look. Now, if I would have chosen a smaller brush, I would not have had this much shadow. So that was my choice, and I'm going to make sure for the other two, I am going to get a smaller brush. So I've kind of my shadow down along there, kind of up the right side of mine. Okay, let me get another small brush. I'm gonna use this little brush here. So this little green apple, there's already green on there, but I'm still gonna put a little bit yet green and red together. Kind of go up my shadow right here. Now I'm gonna kind of go over that with just the green alone, and then just a little bit of yellow. And up the right side here. And then this red apple, green and yellow, just a very small amount, kind of the shadow. Okay, now I'm going to go into the red and go over the red. Much happier with how this is. But what I love about paint, honestly, is if you don't like something, you just let it dry, and then when it dries, you can paint over again. So I'm going into the red and green now, and I'm gonna make the stems. Okay, because red and green makes brown, and my stems are brown. And there we go. So I've got my stems, my apples done. I'm gonna create a little highlight too. So I'm gonna clean out my brush this time. So once again, go into my water, wiping it out off on the edge here, drying it on a paper towel. Then I can go into my white right in here. And then I've already kind of created a shadow on the right side. So since the shadow's on the right side of my fruit, I'm gonna have the light coming from above. So I can take my little white, my little white highlight and put it right there on the top part where I want my highlight or my sun to catch. So I'm going to do that in the same spot on all of them. And I did not go to my water, and I went from red to this green, so it kind of made a kind of a color in there I wasn't totally crazy about. So I can go into the yellow and white maybe, and kind of, maybe a little more green. Okay, let me go back in my white. And kind of lighten that. There we go. The thing I don't want to do, which is very tempting when you make a mistake or have too much color somewhere, is to keep globbing on more color. What that's going to do is actually makes it more of a mess. So you just do kind of lightly use your brush to kind of lightly brush stroke a thin layer on there. If you really don't like it, just let it dry and you can totally paint over it. But I'm liking mine. I like my apples. I think they look really cool. So now I'm going to move on to painting my bowl. And this bowl can be anything you want, your favorite color. I'm not going to choose red or green just because I have red and green apples. But I could do a violet bowl. I can do a blue bowl, whatever I want. And I'm going to choose blue because I have a blue right there. So my bowl is a lot bigger. So I'm going to kind of clean out my brush. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to choose more of a medium large brush. And now I'm going to paint this bowl. So I'm going to just, like I always do, kind of go slower around the edge of mine, and then I'll go a little bit faster when I go in the middle. So I'm just painting mine. I'm just painting a solid blue color right now. Some of you added designs and details like that. You can paint that however you want, but I'm just starting off with a solid blue. Now I'm going to paint this bottom part, the foot of my project. I'm going to paint that in with the blue as well. Okay. So I could leave it like that, but I want it to look a little more three-dimensional. So once again, let's remember, okay, we have the shadows kind of around the edge here. We have the shadows kind of on the right bottom of all of my fruit, okay? I did my highlights with the white at the top kind of left. So notice I said right bottom for shadows, top left for the highlights. So since my light's coming on this side, I'm gonna have my light coming over here. So now I'm gonna take my brush into the white. Notice I didn't even clean out my brush, okay? And I'm just going to put this white with the blue just on this left side, okay? So I'm just letting it mix. And since the paint's nice and wet, it's mixing really, really well. I could mix a little bit down here. I want it to be a little bit darker on the edge there, just so I can see where that curve is. And then I would be finished. So this painterly quality where you see really, really light to dark, I love it. I don't need it to be a flat matte color, okay? I'm not looking to do that. It's not, I want it to keep it as much like Cezanne's work as I can. So we're gonna focus on this. If, like I said, if something really bothers you and you don't like the way it's turned out, if you did a thin layer, you just let it dry, you paint over it, it's no big deal. I'll have a hair dryer out if you wanna speed up the process. The only thing you don't wanna do, and I've seen people do this, is if they paint it and they don't like it, then they try to take white and paint over it like it's an eraser. It's not gonna work. White's too weak anyways as a tint, so it's not gonna erase anything. The best bet is if you don't like it, just let it dry, leave it alone, and then go back and paint it when it is dry, okay, if it really bothers you. And I know some of you that might drive you crazy because it's not looking perfect yet, but just know nobody's artwork is finished yet. We still have work to do, so we can certainly fix and add extra details as we need to.